بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Indeed, Ikhwan, from the qira'ah and from the beautiful recitation that we heard tonight, there are a number of verses, Ikhwan, that are of great relevance, particularly as it relates to the affairs of the da'wah and calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We heard in tonight's qira'ah that which is related to the story of Musa and Fir'aun, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him victory over Ahl al-Shirk and his enemy, from the greatest of the disbelievers that have ever lived. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us to understand something from the story and informs us of something from that which took place. And we see from the courage of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and that is and has to be the nature of the da'i ila Allah, the caller to Allah, must be courageous. It must be one, ikhwan, that is not filled with fear and is not affected by those who make claims and accusations against him or threaten him in order to weaken his resolve. Rather, the caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he remains courageous and he understands his mission. When Allah Azza wa Jal informs us of that which took place with Fir'aun and Musa, he mentions that indeed, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ السَّحَرَةُ قَالَ لَهُمْ مُوسَى أَلْقُوا مَا أَنْتُمْ مُلْقُونَ. When the Sahara, when some of the greatest magicians, the most skilled and proficient magicians, they were sent by Fir'aun to disprove this magic of Musa as he was claiming, and in order to prove that he was upon batil and falsehood. Allah Azza wa Jal informs us, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ السَّحَرَةُ قَالَ لَهُمْ مُوسَى أَلْقُوا مَا أَنْتُمْ مُلْقُونَ. When the Sahara, the magicians, they came, Musa said to them, أَلْقُوا مَا أَنْتُمْ مُلْقُونَ. Throw what you're going to throw. And present it. Whatever it is you have from magic, present it. Because Musa had the firm resolve, knowing that he was upon the haqq, knowing that he was upon the truth. That firm resolve, ikhwan, gave him the ability, knowing that his cause was one that was good, and that he stood for the affair of Allah and the establishment of Tawheed. And so he said to them, throw what it is you're going to throw. And so when they threw, قَالَ مُوسَى مَا جِئْتُمْ بِهِ السِّحْرِ. That which you've come, Musa said, when they threw what they threw, that which you've come with is magic. إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَيُبْطِلُهُ. And indeed Allah Azza wa Jal shall nullify it. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, he mentions, لَا يُصْلِحُ عَمَلَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Establishes a qaida for us, a principle, that Allah Azza wa Jal will not establish the works of the mufsideen, will not establish the works of those who cause corruption in the earth. Allah Azza wa Jal will not establish those works. And that then has in it for the believer, it establishes within him the need to establish his affairs correctly. And that he is not from those who cause fasad or involve themselves in fasad and in corruption. Rather, he follows the path of uprightness and righteousness. Why? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُصْلِحُ عَمَلَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Because the amal and the action of the mufsid, the one who causes corruption, it won't be established. Can't be established. And that is a principle that Musa informs us of in these verses Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned to us. And towards the end of the story, after we see what Bani Israel went through and how Musa alayhi salatu wasalam remained steadfast upon the path of Tawheed and the call to Tawheed and the affair of rectification. For indeed his affair was, as was the case with the previous prophets and messengers, their affair was rectification. At the end of all of that, Allah Azza wa Jal informs us that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as it relates to the believers, وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And indeed it is a right upon us. Allah Azza wa Jal has, the creation has no right upon Allah. But Allah Azza wa Jal establishes rights upon Himself. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نُنْجِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It is a right upon us to aid and to give success to the mu'mineen, to the believer. And that is another principle, that it is a haqq that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed upon Himself to help and give aid to the believer. But the issue is, how are the believers? Are they being believers as they should be? Are they obeying Allah Azza wa Jal as they should be? Are they establishing the tawheed according to Allah Azza wa Jal and enjoining the good and forbidding the evil as they should be? Are they believing in Allah Azza wa Jal correctly and establishing the principles of Iman as they should be? And that is the issue, ikhwan. And our scholars, they mention, for indeed we've mentioned and we've listened to a number of verses that our scholars have discussed that the rectification of the Ummah revolves around. This being from them, وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نُنْجِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It is a right upon us to save and give victory to the mu'mineen, to give them salvation. But how are they as mu'mineen? When they leave alone that which they are supposed to be fulfilling and they are supposed to be carrying out, we see the humiliation that comes upon us, as occurs in the authentic hadith. إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَ وَأَخَذْتُمْ أَذْنَابَ الْبَقَرِ وَرَضِيتُمْ بِالزَّرْعِ وَتَرَكْتُمُ الْجِهَادِ سَلَّطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ ذُلًّا لَا يَنزِعُهُ عَنْكُمْ حَتَّى تَرْجِعُوا إِلَى دِينِكُمْ. When you trade with ina, a type of riba, a type of usury, when you trade with ina and you hold on to the tail of the cow and you're pleased with agriculture, yani just dunya, وَتَرَكْتُمُ الْجِهَادِ, and you leave alone jihad, and that is whether jihad on the battlefield when it is legislated, or the broader meaning of jihad, striving in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal, striving and making jihad against one's nafs, jihad against the shaitan, jihad against one's own self, in curbing his desires. وَتَرَكْتُمُ الْجِهَادِ سَلَّطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ ذُلًّا. Allah Azza wa Jalla will place upon you humiliation, and He will not remove it from you until you return to your deen. The Prophet ﷺ did not mention until you return to jihad. He said until you return to your deen. And thus the rectification of the Ummah, ikhwan, is not in a call to fighting. And we are not saying, ikhwan, that it is not an element and is not something that is present within our deen, la. But if we're really looking to remedy our mushkila, to remedy our problem, brothers and sisters, is remedied by our correcting ourselves, rectifying ourselves. And that is what we've heard in the verses that we heard tonight. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ لم يكن مغيرا نعمة أنعمها على قوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. That is because Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, Allah will not change a ni'mah and a blessing that He gave to a people until they change that which is within themselves. Yani those ni'am that we have that disappear, they do not disappear except that we have done something. We have changed ourselves. We ourselves have changed, and thus they leave. And this ayah, ikhwan, contrasts that ayah with the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal that is commonly mentioned, related to the rectification of the Ummah, that indeed, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That Allah Azza wa Jal will not change the state of a people until they change what is within themselves. And oftentimes the ayah is used to establish the fact that our rectification comes when we first change ourselves. Both of these two ayat discuss change. The issue, ikhwan, is change. When we remain in the rut that we're in, then our situation will remain the same. Regardless of how much we scream and shout, our situation remains the same. Our issue is change. Constantly, our affair should be a view to change. And we shouldn't be adverse to change for the better. Look at these two verses. The first verse, the one that we constantly hear, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That is oftentimes used to indicate that our rectification comes with change. Our betterment comes with change. Until we change what is within ourselves, Allah Azza wa Jalla will not change our situation. But then look at the other verse. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَكُنْ مُغَيِّرًا نِعْمَةً أَنْعَمَهَا عَلَى قَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That is because Allah Azza wa Jal will not change a blessing that He gave to a people until they change what is within themselves. This ayah indicates the removal of ni'am and the fact that we are stripped of blessings when we change what is within ourselves. When we're upright and when we're doing that which we should be doing, Allah Azza wa Jal blesses His ibad, blesses His servant. And those ni'am remain and increase. Then when we change and we digress and our state dilapidates and we fall into a state, ikhwan, of sin and ma'asi and disobedience to Allah Azza wa Jal, then that blessed state that we had, it begins to change. Allah Azza wa Jal has informed us of that. ذلك بأن الله لم يكن مغيرا نعمة أنعمها على قوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah Azza wa Jalla will not change a ni'mah that He has given to a people. And so, ikhwan, when we're looking to those blessings that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us, know that Allah Azza wa Jalla will strip those blessings from us one by one when we change. And one of the tricks of shaitan is to slowly but surely take the abd and the servant from an upright state, from the upright state, a noble state that he was in, slowly but surely remove him from that state, but have him believe that he has remained the same. Have him believe that he hasn't changed. When the difference between him then and now is like the difference between the heavens and the earth. And so Allah Azza wa Jalla in the one verse indicates to us the fact that our rectification will not come about until we change. And in the other, that we're stripped of those ni'am, stripped of those blessings when we change, ya'ni change for the worse. And so our scholars constantly, da'iman wa abadan, we hear them calling to this methodology of tasfiyah and tarbiyah, tasfiyah and tarbiyah. The purification, this affair of tasfiyah, purifying the deen, purifying the sunnah, purifying fiqh, purifying hadith, purifying aqidah, purifying akhlaq, purifying adab, purifying it from anything that has been added to it, and then nurturing, tarbiyah, nurturing the ummah upon that pure deen. And that, ikhwan, is something that we benefit from these verses. That was the method and the methodology of the prophets and the messengers in calling to Allah Azza wa Jal. As we mentioned previously, their affair was not, ikhwan, to head for the rulers. If you look at the da'wah of the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how was he concerned with the rulers? What was his concern with the rulers? Study the sunnah. It was little. Letters, aslim taslam, embrace and you'll be safe. Letters. But there wasn't an ongoing concern with the rulers, since that was not the way of the da'wah of the prophets and the messengers. Their da'wah and their call revolved around the people, revolved around rectifying the general people, calling them to Allah Azza wa Jal. If the rulers come, alhamdulillah. But if they don't, ikhwan, then their mission remains the same, to call the people to Tawheed. And as we mentioned, the prophets and the messengers of the past, how many of them established a state? How many of them ruled over a nation? How many? Well, do we say all of them failed in their mission? La. They were successful in their mission in calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were successful in establishing the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala since they left this dunya. And they had individuals following them upon the affair of the establishment of Tawheed. They left this dunya with the people being connected to Allah. They left this dunya knowing that those who they left behind them from the believers, they remain constant upon that thing that will keep them pure. The affair of istighfar and ilm and amal. And as it relates to istighfar, Allah Azza wa Jalla, and we mentioned and we heard a verse tonight, as it relates to the affair of istighfar, that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ, beautiful ayah, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that indeed Allah Azza wa Jal, addressing His messenger, Allah Azza wa Jal was not going to punish them while you are among them. While the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam remained among them, then Allah Azza wa Jal promised that He will not punish them while you are among them. And as it relates to this verse, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, he said, كَانَ لَنَا أَمَانَانِ. He said that indeed we had two forms of aman, two forms of protection and security. He said, ذَهَبَ أَحَدَهُمَا. One of them has gone. وَبَقِيَ الْآخَرِ. And one remains. And that is as it relates to this verse that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَكُنْ, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. That indeed Allah was not going to punish them while you are among them. And Allah Azza wa Jal was not going to punish them, secondly, while they seek the forgiveness of Allah. And while they seek Allah Azza wa Jal's forgiveness. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, and we'll round up Ikhwan with this point. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions, look how Allah Azza wa Jal used two different types of address. In the first statement, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ. That Allah Azza wa Jal was not going to يُعَذِّبَهُم. And he used here the fi'l mudari'. Fi'l mudari' now. مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ. A fi'l or a verb that indicates an ongoing affair. Oftentimes used for the present tense. Indicates something that is ongoing. Yani or something that, as Ibn al-Qayyim mentions, يَتَجَدَّد. Yani constantly Allah Azza wa Jalla, as long as you're there, then you won't be punished. As long as you, Muhammad, are present, you will not be punished. But then he said, well, look how when he mentioned the second verse, Allah Azza wa Jalla changed the address. And he mentioned, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ. That Allah Azza wa Jalla here used مُعَذِّبَهُمْ, which indicates al-luzum wa-thubut. Yani something that is established, something that will not change, yani a principle. And that is because of the fact that the affair of istighfar is something that is relative to the address. The word that is used is relative to the affair of istighfar. And the first sentence or statement is relative to the presence of the messenger. That is, that Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, as long as you are with them constantly until you are taken, then they will not be punished. And thus the verb that indicates an ongoing affair relative to their present state was used by Allah. While as it relates to istighfar, istighfar is something that will remain until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And until Allah Azza wa Jal takes the believers from earth. That is, they constantly have the ability to seek the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so Allah Azza wa Jal changes the address to be relative to that reality. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ. Constantly, He will not punish them as long as they make istighfar. And one of the great benefits that we take from that is the station of istighfar, ayyuhal ikhwah. The station of seeking the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. Na'am, we will have shortcomings. Na'am, you as a believer, we will err. Na'am, we are not perfect. But Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with that one thing. which if we remain constant upon it, it will support our naqs, support our deficiencies, support our shortcomings, and that is istighfar. That is seeking the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. For indeed, without that istighfar, ikhwan, we are destroyed. The fact that Allah Azza wa Jal accepts our tawbah is a great ni'mah from the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we must remain constant upon and thank Allah Azza wa Jal for. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى يوفقنا وإياكم لما يحبه ويرضاه وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.